Well, happy Sunday, SMITE fans. Welcome into the SEC. We're over in North America. And we've got a good matchup for you today between Elevate and OHEY. Gore Miserth with me to talk about it. And Gore, this is a region where you're playing against Baskin and the boys, Bloogie and the Woogie. So when you have these games up against admittedly lower teams in the North American SEC, you got to make them count. Here's the schedule we've got, though, this week. On top is Elevate versus OHEY. Locked and Goated Hype Unit. That's a good matchup as well. And then, the rest of the games kind of this week will obviously cause some ebb and flow here in the standings. Baskin and the boys, Bloogie and the Woogies, as mentioned, up on top. And Gore Miser, that all kind of comes back to the point. OHEY and Elevate searching for a win in a very lopsided region with a couple of the teams out in front.
But the best news for both of these teams, Dave, someone's walking away with a win today, right? That zero is going to disappear for somebody out of it. And honestly, I still think this matchup has a lot to come through. We actually got to see OHEY a couple weeks ago, and watching them come through it and play, you could tell they had the essence, but it really is what you said. When you're up against the teams like Bloogie and the Woogie and Baskin and the boys, you don't necessarily have a lot of wiggle room, so today's maybe their chance to shine out a little bit brighter.
Let's see what picks and bans have in store for us for game number one of the SEC set over here. We've seen kind of this carryover, Gore, a different meta sort of forming in the SOC and the SEC compared to the SPL. Obviously, team coordination is the name of the game for some of those more intricate picks. That said, there are still some picks that are pretty standard across the board. Uller and Heimdall, a couple of the hunters, those seem to be standard regardless of what SMITE division you're playing in.
Yeah, I think that's what we're going to end up seeing, and what we kind of seen as a trend, more arguably, through SCC, is realistically, hey, sometimes there is this guy that we can target ban, someone who's just been so good at this one thing that we're going to get rid of it. And then sometimes there's just the meta picks. They're going to be so solid anyway that you don't want to have to deal with them. So Uller, I think Heimdall even falling into that. I wouldn't be surprised if Morgan, Afro, maybe even a Hell goes up there because of how potent they've been.
Yep. Well, you can see bans against OHEY. Aphrodite is a 33% ban rate here against them. Not so much heavily banned out against Elevate, but it is banned out in the SEC pretty heavily. So whether that's OHEY specific or just Aphrodite, Hell, the suite of healing gods here in the game are just strong, that might be the case. Camazot's certainly still in that category. He's been in an interesting spot, though, Gore. Remember, he and Camazot's dominated SEC, even SPL for a little while, got nerfed a decent amount. Kind of been in this weird in-between state, but OHEY still think he's strong enough to spend a ban.
And honestly, I think it's just because of the flexibility that we've seen out of him. One of the biggest things that I think is the main irritant, I should say, from like Camazot's, and it's actually something we got to see yesterday in the European SCC, is you first pick him, and that could be jungle, that could be solo. Honestly, you could probably even run it support if you really wanted to try it and dominate over there in the duo lane. Like, he's just so flexible, and late game he can get so tanky, has so much sustain that he's just hard to take down. And because of that, it's one of those things, unless you're going to coordinate and dedicate 3 people to killing a Camazotz, which is a lot to dedicate, get him out of there.
Well, the Morgan is a god that not only makes the job harder for OHEY, but also makes our job a little bit harder, hard to track down exactly who is who on the map at any given time outside of just the player name hovering above the god. But Morgan, obviously, the conversation around her has been prevalent in the SPL. Now comp available. She brings so much to the table. Talk about flexibility, the ultimate flexibility, and turning into any god that's in the game at the moment. Not any god in the game, not any of the 109 other options. You get 9 choices that you can transform into, and that opens the door to a lot of interesting playstyles.
And I mean, it's one of the best things to look at. It's not necessarily just her, although, honestly, you take away Morgan's ult, she still hits ridiculously hard for someone coming through. I mean, you could be, well, maybe not the Jormungandr or the Xing Shin, but whatever mage they pick up for mid, whatever the hunter and whatever assassin they grab on the side of OHEY, it's a dangerous game when Morgan's on the other side. But now think about the fact that they could have a World Serpent if they wanted, a Whirlwind of Rage and Steel if they need it. Hey, that River's Rebuke on their team? Cool, they can get 2 of them now. And it's just that kind of play style that Morgan opens. Makes it so much more fun. Like you said, a little confusing, but a lot more fun to watch because of the options available.
And I think actually OHEY have the right mindset here, because really the first thing that kind of jumped to my mind, I remember a Hunbats and a Morgan on the same team, or in the same game even. a while ago, but it was on the same team. And the double Fear No Evils were almost just too much to compete with.
Yeah.
Team fight after team fight were just spiraled out of control. So I actually really like the way OHEY are thinking about this, where Elevate still needs someone in the jungle. Hunbats is a perfect pair with that Morrigan ultimate. So let's take him off the table. Still, though, lots of potential setup gore still there for Elevate to lock in for their jungle pick.
I think that's the biggest thing. And like you said, having the cooldowns that come up, a lot of junglers, specifically the ones that were banned out, are kind of oriented around when can we find this ult, and usually you're looking at that window when beads is down. Xingqian, really good at getting beads if he goes in with his ult, or vice versa. You can set your jungler up to make it so that the Whirlwind of Rage and Steel can lock it down. With Hunbats, with Thor, even with Susanoo gone, there's not too much lockdown that's like huge, crazy team fight lockdown still available. But I'm interested to see what OHEY decide to kind of close it out with.
Well, Elevate are going to close it out with the Amaterasu and the OHEY. So a strong duo lane, to be sure. Lockdown and even kill potential early on in this game for Elevate to start things off. OHEY will round out with an Erlang Shen, interestingly enough. So there is flex potential, but Jormungandr almost certainly in that solo lane. Xingqian likely in support. Leaves Erlang Shen Gore in the jungle.
And I really like Erlang Shen, and I like what he can bring to the table. Again, a lot of it is easy to look over. Honestly, I think even his ult, as strong as it can also be a little weak in times. It depends on if he gets ahead or not, because the heal that he's going to get for it, which is something that has saved lives in the past, sometimes doesn't proc through in time, and even though sometimes it's enough healing to save your life, sometimes it's not quite that amount you needed. So he rides this fine line. I think if OHEY can start this game off pretty solid early on, then they're going to be able to make this Erlang Shen transition into a monster later.
Well, there's always that safety net for Elevate in the Morrigan, able to transform and pull back some of the advantage that maybe OHEY is able to build. Let's jump into game number one, though. Elevate and OHEY both searching for a win here in the SCC. And Gore, as we saw the rest of the picks kind of flow through there for OHEY, you look at Kigzi there in the mid lane, still plenty of potential for transformations and potentially team fight changing ultimates.
And I mean, look at it. They have Spreen here on Osiris, which in my mind isn't the first one I think of when it comes to lockdown. But honestly, look at the 1-2 combo Osiris is going to bring and how that can relate with Keegs here. I think the slow is going to be ridiculous. So maybe not this big team fight ultimate, but the ability to set up someone like, Kiermi here or like Amuel pretty easily to get locked down either by Morrigan, or if she wants to, she can change into Amaterasu, pretty good team fight. Or you can change again over into that Yamoja, which could be very solid.
Right.
But I expect Keegs, if he's choosing anyone on his team, we're going to see double OHEY more than likely. I wouldn't be surprised if is looking more over towards the other side if they want to become, like you had pointed out, maybe the Erlang Shen, maybe even the Merlin for a little bit just to have that. And it's such an interesting principle because there's also the availability of switching to like a Chernobog and giving yourself a global ult. Like, that's the play that I love so much about Morrigan is how many options she brings.
Lots to track down, lots to lock down here, not only if you're Elevate, but if you're OHEY. Obviously, with the Amaterasu locked in late, that was going over to the solo lane. Warrior jungle continues to be a thing here, not only in the SPL, but in the SOC and even down in the SCC and in the SOC as well a little bit, Gore. So an Erlang Shen here for OHEY. We've seen that in the jungle a little bit. Mm-hmm. And now maybe a quick pause to give us a chance to really talk about it. This Osiris in the jungle, admittedly fewer data points in my brain as far as how that works.
Osiris can clear camps well, and he can make decent ganks. The biggest issue really does come down to what I was saying earlier, where it's just not the big team fight initiator that you really see. He's good at chasing kills down. His leap, maybe not the best start for a fight, but a great way to get that kill when he's running off. He has a lot of slows in his kit. Again, the 1-2 combo makes sure that they really can't move that well, and he has a stun, but all of this combined doesn't quite match up to what you're seeing out of like an assassin, like a Hunbats that we saw banned out, right? But he brings in that warrior scaling that we've seen kind of be prioritized lately with the Vimanas, with the Nikes. So I think it's that tankiness, innate tankiness that he's going to have and that ability to chase people down after the fact that's going to help him out. Maybe Morrigan is actually the setup for this team instead of your jungler, and he is the follow-up as opposed to the opposite, which is normally true.
Yeah, and you look at the composition that Elevate have built around that as well, and Amaterasu's going to be right up in front, some dazzling offensives, hopefully to set up some big team fights there for them. Kind of seems like an idea where the Emoja can kind of set up that lockdown, Big River's Rebuke can maybe separate some team fights, but then you have this double warrior that have the lockdown and sprint forward potential to kind of keep you at bay and continue to chase you on down from there on out.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, I think, to say the least, to see how the disengage is going to work for OHEY more than anything, because you've got a nice blink on Merlin, pretty good at getting away from slows. It's not going to stop him from being slowed, but a good way to get away. Chernobog obviously has a global ult that can at least give him CC immunity when he goes up into it to try and escape things like this. And I think the overall team fight for them is probably going to be just flat out better in my eyes. I think Kiermi's going to be able to bring a lot more powerful punch, I think, because of the disengage and the ability to kind of escape even further into the backline for Amuel and Frasian. It's just going to make it so much easier for them to say, hey, cool, Spreen can't chase us down forever. Goodbye.
That's true. And there's some lockdown even for OHEY as well. I think the Jormungandr in the solo lane is a pick that I've really started to enjoy. Obviously, safe in lane from a lot of gank potential. World Serpent, not unlike really what we saw with the Kamazots for a while. That out of hell not only could be used offensively, but sort of this quote get out of jail free card. I think Dishonored and the Jormungandr have a little bit of that for themselves there as well. But then the team fight impact from a Jormungandr, I don't think can be understated. I think this game be heavily impacted by both of these solo laners once rotation time starts.
Yeah, the one thing I love the most about Jormungandr is how much disruption he has. It's one of those things, when you look at his kit, so much of it seems like it would be great for just standard support, maybe being able to kind of throw him over there, but he has a good scaling and things like that just make him fit well over here in the solo lane, because he does the one thing you need most. He doesn't lose. He's not maybe going to always win. I don't expect to see Dishonored get 3 kills that are solo kills over Heat throughout the course of this game. I expect to see Dishonored stay on par, maybe start farming a little bit better. Maybe there's a good gank over here from Kiermi and they do get ahead, but it's not something he does on his own. And then that disruption, because he just stays on par, he gets to be a much higher level than you'll see out of Oceans or Shia for a long time. That's going to translate into that late game so cleanly for OHEY, because you'll have someone who can be that big frontline disruptor for you.
And an interesting build, honestly, to start out here for Dishonored. I mean, when you look at Jormungandr in the solo lane, you kind of build those hybrid-y power protection items. Celestial Legion Helm, absolutely an item that falls under that tree. But maybe a different start from how we typically see some of these bruiser, I don't know if you call them a mage, but magical damage bruisers to start things off.
I like the concept. I want to argue maybe similar to a Glad Shield start for a warrior in this kind of matchup, but it's again, it's perfect for him, because it's hey, here's a little bit of magical power that's going to come through, help him clear off, which has given him about half a level lead over there, but also the fact that he's going to have some physical protections that then stacks on top of itself as well. It's going to make it hard for Heat to do anything.
Here's the first engagement. It's over in the long lane. Whirlwind of Raging Steel, traded out with River's Rebuke down. Break the Sun's Bayronary. He'll find the opening kill here in this fight. The mid laner's rotating through. But it's only Amuel this time. Frasian stunned down, and Spreen has found the second kill of the game for Elevate. It's a purple buff invade gone right for the Elevate squad. OHEY was there to try to play spoiler, but it's Elevate that are on top with a couple.
Just being able to get that aggressive, a lot of ults are thrown out there, but honestly, I think aggressing into Shia, Bayronary, just those two ult combos alone, that's a dangerous game. And this Osiris, again, showcases what he can do, and now that he's going to start getting ahead, I think he's going to be able to control the flow of the game. I don't know how well it's going to translate into late game for him, especially compared to Erlang Shin. I expect to see more out of the Erlang, but early on, especially in the mid-game area that we're starting to approach, this is where I expect to see not only that slow just feeling so painful on the side of OHEY, but realistically just to see Spreen in the action a little bit more.
And I guess that's kind of the luxury that Warrior in the jungle could potentially afford you. Maybe if you're an assassin, you're, granted not much, but maybe a touch squishier there in the early. You can play a little bit more aggressively, and Spreen's certainly showing that there. He's got a kill and an assist now in that jungle, 1 level lead over Kiermi. Though you maybe figure that if Kirmi can kind of stay farmed up, keep the items flowing, try to stay somewhat close level-wise. It's now grown to a 2-level gap there in that jungle.
Yeah.
This Erlang Shen could maybe be more impactful moving into the late.
And the reason it comes down to it is just the pin that Erlang Shen has on its own is very oppressive, but then he has a taunt on top of that gives him the heal. He can chase you down or shield himself, depending on whether he wants to go mink or turtle. It's that concept that he has, in a way that's similar to Sun Wukong, but better.
Well, here we go again, Gore. It's going to be Oceans opening things up with the Xingqian ultimate again, and immediately answered back by Xia. Kizzy rounding the right-hand side, but Spreen deep in the front line is going to grab himself the opening kill here on this small engagement. It's another purple buff invade. This one, again, successful for Elevate. Nobody will pick up the buff, but it is Spreen picking up another kill. Amuel close by, my goodness, takes half his health just poking his head around the corner. We'll continue here, Gore. Maybe a red buff invade. Xia here as well. Oceans, he's going to get stunned down. Has the double leap, though, so he stays alive. So the kill not yet completed, but Spreen drops down the damage, and that's kill number 3 for the Osiris in the jungle.
It's weird to word it this way, because you get to see it in lane. It's very nice, because you can sit back comfortably as an Osiris and throw out your 2 to clear minions. But right there, it just showcases the range of his abilities as well, which is another good thing that you don't typically get out of your junglers. You don't necessarily have that long range, I'm going to poke you down, even if it's just a little bit of damage, to lock you up. And so being able to find a kill like that, it not only is huge for Spreen, because he's now 3-0-1, but that 2-level lead is even better because 2 of those kills are on to Kirmi. I mean, you're keeping the jungle down for OHEY, and that's a big part of their initiation.
Yeah, working perfectly here for Elevate to start off still, and maybe now more solidified. Probably a 1.5 level lead with Kirmi just a wave or 2 of farm behind, but Spreen, I think, now really solidifying that 2-level lead in the jungle. Kixi as well, big beneficiary. She has obviously been heavily involved in these fights. The Yemoja lockdown has shown its head a handful of times, and that shows why Elevate are happy to play on this side of the map. It's a whirlwind of Rage and Steel trying to counter it out. Hasn't worked out. Spreen, though, might go down. Amuel for the wall. Will finish off the damage, so a silver lining here for OHEY. Not only do you get a kill, but it's on to Spreen, so a bit of a shutdown there as well.
Man, 9 times out of 10, that should have been an escape, man. Like, I'm a little salty for Spreen in that instance. There's very, I want to say, small areas, and even where he clipped was a small area of where Merlin's damage was going to be, but it was just enough because of how low he was that he's going to be able to get out of there. And I think showcasing, again, Lord of the Afterlife is great, but it's also his only real disengage as much as it is his only real engage on the people, which causes some trouble for Osiris.
Kixi now in a little bit of trouble, uses the beads, River's Rebuke from Xia as he's rotated in, but maybe Xia's just going to die for his troubles. Gets a nice triple stagger there as the River's Rebuke crashes down, but it's OHEY now more recently. They're finding themselves some fights that are working. Elevate maybe getting a little bit too aggressive, Gourmizer. OHEY not that far behind. It is about a 1.2k gold differential, but they can still swing. Now Amuel has a kill on the board. Kirmi, he has a kill on the board. Dishonored has gotten involved as well. This one moving really close back to even.
And it's actually interesting because Dishonored and Kirmi, they've been playing together a while, and they've been that solo lane jungle matchup. Kirmi we got to see recently when he subbed in for Sino during the playoffs that came through. And I mean, as far as history goes together, it's one of the biggest things I think we get to talk about, especially at this level for the SCC, because it can make a huge difference. And I think having your solo lane know what your jungler is going to be about and have that kind of mesh already has been solid for them to be able to just get, an engagement like that.
And now I'm looking at this Morgan in the mid lane where she's gotten off to a 3-assist start. I mean, kind of counteracting what the Merlin has been able to do. Is you're bringing up a good point there with him as well. It's a Doomorb start now in the mid lane for Elevate for this Morgan. Yeah. Does that make some sense to start things off? Maybe that extra movement speed lends itself to some earlier rotations.
I think the movement speed is going to help, but also the power. That's one of the things. I love Doomorb because it just gives you so much. But when you're Morgan, she hits like a truck. And she hits like a truck from the beginning of the game to the end of the game. And with something like a Doomorb, it's just going to be even, again, I keep using the word oppressive, but that's just because that's all I can think about is it's going to shut you down before you can really do anything here. And unfortunately for OHEY, I think a lot of that damage is going to fall onto Amuel if he steps out of place, or potentially to Kirmi since he's going to actually have to, get aggressive onto this Morrigan. The problem is that Keegs hasn't necessarily been in a big position to do anything. Even now, is just using the ult to get the Suns.
Chia separating Oceans from the Gold Fury. Elevate will lock down the Fury. Oceans was there with the ultimate, but unable to steal it away. Continuing to take these fights on the left side of the map, Gormizer. There is the global ultimate used by Frasian here. Keegsy on the back foot. Taunt back in from Kirmi, and Frasian will find the kill. Spreen's got 4 members of OHEY looking at him. A double kill now for the Chernobog. Gore was a 2-level differential just a moment ago in that long lane. Elevate continuing to push the advantage on the left side of this map. Now Frasian has a double kill, affecting 4 out of the 5, and the gap is closed.
And not only that gap, but the gap in the jungle has closed up now, on par with each other, where Spreen had a 2-level lead earlier. And a 5-man rotation, I mean, Dishonored is way over on the other side of the map this early on. Yeah, you might lose the Fury, but with a fight like that plus a Pyromancer, they make it more worthwhile than anything. I mean, they close up the gap Elevated built in just one fell swoop.
Yeah, it's closed and surpassed by Kirmi, a 1-level lead now for the Erlong Shen. 750 XP, about 1,000 gold still here to start things off for Elevate. But the turnaround from OHEY has been prevalent. You think back to the way this game started. Double ganks over there in that long lane, continuing to try to push that advantage on the back end of Purple Buff Invades. Maybe you call it an overstay, Gore, I'm not sure, but the 2 times Spreen has died, it's kind of been himself on an island getting collapsed on by OHEY, and that's really brought OHEY back into the game.
And I think we're going to see that more often than not. It's one of the things, I like the concept of warriors in the jungle, but sometimes they just don't have the same... Like, there's a reason assassins are so potent at it. They have engage, they have disengage, they have the ability to disrupt team fights, and I think Osiris can bring some of that, but if he jumps in, he's not jumping out. He has to run the old-fashioned way.
Well, he's going to start things off over here with a dazzling offensive. A stun down onto Oceans and the World Serpent from Dishonored. We'll get the Jormungandr out of the fray. Pyromancer a few moments ago, locked down by Elevate, or by OHEY rather, so a little gold swing back there in their favor. Action still continuing though here in the long lane. No World Serpent for Dishonored. That's going to be Shia connecting on the good stun. Heed and Spreen swinging away here on the front line. Dishonored taken low, tower aggroed over onto the Osiris, but he will end up falling, and it's Heed who gets the kill. Kirmi, Frasian, they're both here now to play underneath the tier 1 tower. Kirmi gets the kill over onto Spreen. The taunt back in is going to lock in Heat on the back line, but he's able to move his way out of danger just for the moment. Keegsy is here as well. Oceans is going to leap his way through. Blink forward from Kirmi. Keegsy has to Aegis down the damage. Sunbreaker from Bayronari, but not enough. Heat, though, has turned around the damage and found himself a kill. Dash away from the Amaterasu isn't enough, just avoids the slow. It looks like Heed's going to get out alive. Messy, Gormizer, 14.5 minutes in.
Man, being able to use those stance switching there for Amaterasu, just being able to get that little bit of speed through her stance is enough to get her away. And it's things like that that are going to make the big difference, I think, between these two teams, because so far, OHEY have showcased that they can flip things and at least flip the script on its head when necessary. Kirmi's been a lot more a part of these fights. Amuel, Merlin just gets better as the game goes on, so I expect to see even more presence from that. And then, once again, just having that Chernobog being able to rotate, while it hasn't been able to make a huge difference every time, just that presence of, hey, I'm in duo, hey, now I'm in solo lane, is going to be so helpful for OHEY as we start to transition to these team fights. Especially when they're breaking out on right side, gives Frazen the opportunity to maybe split push, take down a couple of towers, and then still be a part of the fight.
That's such a good point, Gore, because the kind of back and forth we've seen already in the long lane here has been Bayronari actually winning the trades up against Frasian, but the big difference is that you get this free rotation if you're the Chernobog. Bayronari can win the fights all he wants, but he's not going to be rejoining these big team fights as quickly as this Chernobog is. So it depends now if Bayronari can force him into a spot where Frasian isn't as happy to maybe move into a fight if he's a touch too low. Because while it is a global ultimate, while it is kind of a free teleport, you do have to move behind an enemy. So you do have to choose that one a bit properly. Good time maybe to take a check-in back on that mid lane. It was an interesting matchup between the Morgan and the Merlin up to this point. 2-0-2, though, is Amuel, benefiting from a couple great setup fights now from his team. Has the Divine Ruin, Spear of Desogor. The penetration build has been seemingly far and away the favorite of the standard caster mages. So this Merlin, a couple items in, is going to be swinging. Might have to return to that, though, in a second, as there is a long lane gank awaiting in the wings. It's Xia who's going to be the first to go down. Kirmi has now pulled back in Baron area on the backside. That's the Hugi Leap, and River's Rebuke will crash its way down. Frasian drops down back into the fight as well. A 1-for-1 trade support for mid laner, and Elevate might be happy with that if Geegsy can stay alive, but he sure can't. Oceans will get the kill, but Spreen has now found his second, a 2-for-2. I don't know who comes out on top.
I mean, mid support for both teams, but honestly, I think the weight of killing Amuel, more specifically, is worth everything that Elevate needed here. I mean, unfortunately, Keegs, well, he's 0-4. He's not necessarily making the game-changing plays right now on this Morgan, so losing him isn't the end of the world for the team, especially if it opens up plays like this where they can get the Gold Fury.
That's a great Fury lockdown by Elevate. Now 2-for-2 on the Furies here in this game, but this is a sight we've begun to get used to seeing, I think. Spreen, low health with a few members of OHEY, but Elevate this time are able to turn things around. Stun from Xia would have certainly been a dead Kirmi. This time it won't connect, and the Erlong Shen is able to get out alive. The big turnaround in this game, 0-2 to start off for Kirmi, but now 3-3-5. With a Toxic Blade online as well, this Erlong Shen is going to be finding some great value, especially now with that Toxic Blade online, mitigating some of that healing.
Yeah, just being able to make it so Xia doesn't feel as effective overall. It's difficult to shut down a Yamoja, and, well, they've got the Divine Ruin, like you said, they've got the Toxic Blade. They even have a Contagion, I believe, coming through there. Just anything they can to try and stop that in-combat and out-of-combat healing that Xia is going to be able to provide for the team. The shielding is going to be, again, just something that's annoying for OHEY to deal with. But so far, they've been able to catch out at least Keegs very consistently without having anything to save him. No stealth to get out, nor shielding or healing or heal from his team. And realistically, this Morgan, I mean, doesn't necessarily have to be the carry for the team, doesn't have to have this stellar slash line, but it needs to be doing something a little bit more. I mean, you know, her net worth isn't very high, her damage could probably be up on the rise, and realistically, she's just getting taken down too often. I mean, she's only above, technically, the Merlin, which is maybe a win, but she's not really a part of these fights.
Well, the mid laners now reaching that point where they're going to maybe start to make some big damage difference here in these fights. Interesting, though, Gore, on the build choice there for Keeks. He's gone into the Wing Blade for his second overall item. Maybe if you, and then you know, does have some power following up with the tier 2 item there. After this, maybe opening up with Doom Orb gives you the option to build something with no power on it, because you have that extra big spike to start things off.
It's going to help you out, and yeah, like you said, the damage is still going to be there, especially if the next item he goes for, which it looks like it will, have pin on it, right? So you have a little bit of extra damage sprinkled in there. But it's also, I think at this point, just to try and keep him alive, right? Some health to make sure he can take another hit from an ability, as well as the ability to, well, just escape some of these slows on the side of OHEY.
Well, it's Heed and Xia here in the solo lane. Heed has that Frostbound Hammer online. You can see it's tough for Dishonored to fully disengage from this fight. The Amaterasu swinging freely. Gonna keep you locked down and slowed down just a little bit. I like that mindset, though, from Heed. It's not all that popular of an item on some of the warriors we see here in the solo lane, Gore, but if you look at this, I mean, Heed is just kind of free swinging away. Dishonored has to, you know, really rely on the peel from his support to get him out.
You know, I really like seeing Xia and Heed hang out together, because like, I was looking up the players before we came into this just to try and get a feel for them, because I was like, I feel like I've seen these names for a while, and I was just trying to figure out, how do I know these guys as well as I do? Like, why do I recognize them? And they have been playing together for a while, and my favorite thing I found was in 2018, they played with a couple players. You might know Dave. They both ended up playing around with Netrioid and Panatom there from Sanguine. Yeah. So they've rubbed elbows with the right people, and I think them working together, again, it's just a historied team that is going to know how the other is going to react well.
Spreen is bumping elbows with Oceans now, and the Osiris has to disengage. It's Keegs now, who's being identified. One last shot will do it from Dishonored. Burns the Aegis just to save from the last bit of damage, but the timing is there from the Jormungandr. Down goes the Morgan for the 5th time this game. Half of the kills that OHEY have are onto the Elevate mid laner. Still maybe a fight that Elevator looking to take, but it is the full-on disengage. That's a free pick, and now maybe a Pyro started up for OHEY.
You know, aggro at this point might be able to go into the fact that, at least in his eyes, if your mid laner isn't doing well, the game is lost. But I will say there's a certain aspect of the mid laner that does have to, you know, they have to be there in order to win the game. 0-5, that's not really the performance you're looking for. Not like you said, just half the deaths of the team, but realistically, again, it comes down to where the damage is. Yeah, he's starting to maybe be a little bit more a part of these fights, but I haven't seen any stellar transformations. I haven't seen anything that makes Morgan Morgan. I've just seen something that any other mage could do potentially better if it was something like a Raijin.
Well, Heat has gone firmly into the backline here. Dazzling Offensive will stun down the Merlin, and he's going to re-dash in onto Kirmi. Look at the space that the solo laner is buying. It's going to open up the door for Spreen to pick up a double kill. Now Dishonored retreating back beneath this tier 2 tower. No World Serpent. Can Spreen find the third? He sure can. It's a triple kill for the Osiris, and Elevate have pulled this one back. A 4K gold lead 22 minutes in.
The only thing that can overlook a 0-5 slash line is an 8-3 slash line, and right now that's what Spreen has going for him. That opens up a Fire Giant. I mean, Oceans is alive, and he might be able to make it back in time to try and steal this, but he's so slow.
That's going to be the FG started and finished now by Elevate. All 5 members have it, Gore, and there's still 3 tier 2 towers on the map. You look at a 6K, almost 7K gold lead for Elevate. And it's just going to get wider once these tier 2 towers go down. The space in that last team fight, Gore, brought to you by Heat and Spreen. I mean, on the back line, Amul couldn't get comfortable. It was Kirmi running away as well. And then Spreen was able to chase him down and finish off a few kills. And that's what you want to see when your solo laner start to rotate into the fights.
It's the warrior effect, man. I mean, what are you going to do against him? Matarasu, as you had actually pointed out with the Dazzling Offensive, was just so great at separating them and forcing them to fall back. Spreen, you know, you were talking about the Wing Blade earlier. Finally, Kirmi gets one, but that's one of the biggest, issues that he's bringing is the, again, oppressive slow. It just changes the game. It makes you frustrated how slow Osiris can make you sometimes. I was kind of surprised to see Keegs pick it up first and maybe not to have it on someone like Amul, like Kirmi. Honestly, maybe even getting picked up for someone like Oceans just to make sure they can try to escape this jungler.
Stone-cutting sword there for Spreen as well, so the longer this Osiris sticks on you, not only more frustrating it gets, but the worse a chance you have of winning that engagement, and a triple kill will prove to be that fact. A long lane tier 2 tower just went down, so there's an open Phoenix in the long lane up against OHEY, and mid lane joins there on after. Tier 2 tower on the right-hand side looks to be the next target here for Elevate, and we figured this would be the massive gold spike, Gore. It was 6 and then 7, 8, and 9K gold lead. We're now at about 11 for Elevate up to this point here in this game. As back and forth as things have gone, seems like things are really busted wide open here at this point, and level's a little bit less important at this point. I mean, it's a 13.5K experience differential. 5 levels down, or 5 levels till 20 for Oceans, but everyone else hovering around that level 20. It's the gold now that really is going to make this big difference.
Especially with now how much Elevate have in their pockets. I mean, you had mentioned like the 5, then 7, then 11, now 13 approaching. That they've just been able to shut down most of OHEY, and those little differences in items, it's going to be an upgraded relic. Cooldown on that beads and aegis that comes up a little bit faster. Block stacks from that shelf, it's going to be a little bit more important. But look at the consumables, it's all the wards.
Watch out, Shia. There is an engagement onto the Emoja, but a River's Rebuke will keep him alive. He is soaking up so much damage and somehow stays alive. Shia, though, ends up going down. The last tick from Oceans got him. Heat is here, though. Down goes Amul. The chase is on for Elevate. Spreen is in the back line. I'm sure he feels like he can 3v1, but he won't need to as the rest of the cavalry's here. It's a 4v3 with Oceans deep and away out of the rest of this fight. Kirmi does get a kill over onto Keegsy. Dishonored, though, pops the thorns. And he's going to return a little bit of damage before going down to Heat. It's a 3-for-2 trade. If Oceans is able to get out alive, it will remain as such. Oh, the stun just misses. It looks like Oceans is going to go down nonetheless here, Gormiser. Just a matter of a chase. Kierme escapes with his life, but now it's Phoenix's on the mind for Elevate.
I only have 30 seconds to try and make this work, and Baronary, I love what you're trying to bring to the table right now, which is mainly clearing off the minions. He can't do it on his own. He needs someone like Heat here, to try and help pressure out this Phoenix. He just doesn't have the health bar to make it work out for him, but that should at least be the mid Phoenix going down. They don't have enough of a buff to maybe push this even further, and 10 seconds before this Chernobog comes back, so not even enough time to try and kill off that Titan. Get what you can, strip the jungle, fall back, and set up, because the next Fire Giant, especially with the way these fights have been going, feels like it's in their grasp already.
Heat and Spreen both with over 1,500 gold ready to spend. Baronary as well, though he has already completed that crit build, and with that, the question of spectral armor tends to come to the mind, and Gore, I don't see any here for OHEY. As much of the conversation has been on Heat and Spreen, opening up that space. Keegsy doing a decent amount of damage despite an 0-6 slash line. These crits from Baronary, well, that's maybe now where this game is going to go, and that might be the big difference maker if the space continues to be opened for him.
Oh yeah, when it's 9, 3, and 4 for your Osiris, again, it's not a lot that can make you overlook an 0-6 slash line that comes through. And the fact that I think I've seen one Morrigan transformation that is stuck in my mind earlier, and it was to start the Gold Fury and have the Suns available. Like, it's just, I'm not feeling a lot from the mid lane, but it doesn't necessarily matter if the rest of your team can really make this as impactful as it has been from the jungle.
A big fight here for Elevate. It's going to be Dishonored using the World Serpent to get out alive. Fire Giant just now respawning. And I agree with you, Gore. You haven't felt the impact from the mid lane, but it's really been from either side. Maybe you can't blame Amuel with the way that Spreen and Heat have just kind of been diving in forward. She has had good lockdown, but this is a pen build Soul Reaver Obshard Merlin that, until a few moments ago, was sub 10k damage 28 minutes into this game. And, again, maybe you can't hang that all on Amuel. Still beneath 10k player damage. But this is now where you need this Merlin to start spiking up, especially on a Phoenix defense.
And especially with what you had just pointed out, who's diving him? I mean, it's Heat and Spreen. Merlin, one of the best things he does is shred tanks, especially with a build like this. It's almost meant exclusively to deal with Heat, Spreen, and Shia. So I expect to see him do a little bit more, and honestly, when it comes to the defense, if he can control the flow of the fight and just stand in the right spots, which is, it's much easier said than done, right? He can, slow down the push from Elevate, even with a Fire Giant, stop them from having as much sustain. But I don't know, man. It just doesn't feel like it's going to be enough. The Divine Ruin, even as potent as it is, doesn't feel like it's stopping that healing as much as you need from Yamoja.
Well, here's your fight. Yamoja is going to start things off. There's the ultimate. Keegsy has found the backline, and he's found Amuel. The Merlin doesn't get to participate, courtesy of the Elevate mid laner. Dishonored is low as well. Whirlwind of Rage and Steel won't find much, as Oceans is going to have to dash his way out. Keegsy is there to return the favor. Baronary with the double. Frazian the last line of defense. Gormiser, it's not going to matter. Elevate, they complete the turnaround in this one. Complete the big game number 1. And they take a 1-0 lead.
Spreen just showcasing one of the things Osiris can do, which is, get to the late game and sit into your backline and see what they can do about it. I think that warrior scaling ends up helping them a ton in those aspects because of, 10, 3, and 7 slash line. I mean, Baronary definitely had a big impact in the late game, but realistically, it was kind of following Spreen and Heat, and that really was the curve of the game. In fact, if you looked at the gold charts, how it kind of just slowly ticked in favor of Elevate until they got that first Fire Giant, and then it just skyrocketed. That's pretty much the curve they were riding the whole time.
And if we didn't need to hang any more on Amuel, but just in case we do need to, he had 9,779 player damage when we were talking about how the Merlin needs to be big on the team fight, especially the Phoenix defense. Gore, he ended with 9,779 player damage. He was dove immediately by Keegs, deleted by the Morrigan, and couldn't participate at all. So despite being 0-6 going into that Phoenix dive, Morrigan still has that late game potential damage to absolutely evaporate a mid laner.
And I think it really was the ability to just jump into the backline and stop him from being effective. I mean, I literally just said he could be a great thing for their defense because of how much shred he's going to have for the tanks, and he didn't even get to showcase what he could do. He wasn't alive long enough to be able to make that happen.
Yeah, the only one shredded was the Merlin by the end of it. Picks and bans for game number 2 might be a ground for adaptation here. Morgan, I think, still comes to my mind, Gore. I don't know if that's a it works moment there in game number 1 for Elevate. Obviously, it does by the end. I mean, you basically one-shot Amul in the mid lane to really seal up that game. I mean, that game was maybe over nonetheless, but if you really want a magnifying glass one specific moment, I don't know if you go back to the Morgan, though, but then there's always that important conversation of still a good god, still a good pick, just an off game.
It comes down to where it was picked for me, I think, more than that they picked it, right? That Morgan was first pick, and that I don't know if I was going to give it a first pick performance, right? So I think it had a lot of weight to it. I do think it's worth getting rid of, especially if you don't spend your bans banning out things like the Hunbats, like these big team fight ultimates that could potentially change the shape of the game. And it kind of feels like, especially with OHEY banning it, they don't want to pick it. I don't think they feel as confident as Elevate in trying to make that one work.
I think it's a good start for the ban phase here for OHEY, and it was a good draft, admittedly, in game 1 for OHEY, but a little bit more in-your-face potential, I suppose, between that Osiris and that Amaterasu. More conditional, maybe, with the Jormungandr. You can stagger them out with your abilities, but between an Osiris and an Ama, they just kind of run at you by nature. So a good draft from OHEY, but a better draft maybe from Elevate in game number 1. Now to start off for game 2, OHEY want to continue, I'm going to assume, solo lane priority, and it's going to be the Cucullin to start it off.
This is going to be solid. I think Cucullin can bring a lot to the table, and I think in solo lane it's going to be able to help find you some comfort, right? I mean, that's one of the things I felt was, I don't want to say missing, but again, Jormungandr kind of just doesn't lose. He doesn't necessarily take control of the game for you. And I think Cucullin might be able to be a little bit more of that winner you needed over there. Someone who has that solo potential, but realistically, when it comes to team fights, can jump into the backline, do what Osiris was doing last game for Elevate, and stop the mid laners.
And I love Elevate going back to the Osiris. I mean, it worked so well for Spreen in game 1 by the end of it. And remember, we were talking about how, well, Spreen was kind of the life rope for OHEY, keeping them in the game there early. But eventually Osiris was just unkillable there by the end of it. So I think still a very strong pick here for Elevate. Now on the flip side, though, OHEY are going to throw an interesting wrench into the mix. A Nuwa in the mid lane, Gore. Do you like that mindset?
I like her because of what, in terms of self-peel she's going to have, as well as the fact that she's going to be able to impact every fight she wants to be a part of across the map. But as far as, hey, I'm planning on making a splash here, it's kind of the big weights. Granted, the Merlin didn't necessarily make as big a splash as we wanted to see, so maybe this new Wa, especially in terms of comfort, is going into the right direction to be able to open that up. But against, Ganesh, against an Ullr, against even Osiris, she doesn't have a lot of escape. She's relying exclusively on that stun to try and self-peel, or maybe on for this Fafnir to come over and stun for her as well. So she might get caught out a little bit more often than not.
Well, there is the ultimate that can just buy you time. Doesn't necessarily get you out of a fight, but does give you a little bit of time. Yeah. I like Ganesh. It's been a popular support pick, a bit on the rise here. I think Dharmic Pillars can be oppressive in the right moments. I mean, the prot shred not only, but high damage on top of that. And even if it lands on one person, Gore, just being able to corral one priority member, and you're either choosing taking damage and shredding your protections to go one way out, or I'm standing here in the middle like a sitting duck and Elevate can dive on.
All right, now it's time for me to dive in. I think Dharmic Pillars might be my favorite ability in Smite. Period. I just love what it can bring to a team fight. And granted, I'm also a support main, so that might be a big weight in it. But I just think in terms of controlling a team fight and helping your team shred targets that otherwise just would not die, God, it brings so much to the table. It's so nice. And maybe they don't have the same CC chain that we've seen, comboed with a tier or someone to force them to take the damage from it. But I think on a team like this with an Ullr behind him, this is looking good for Elevate.
Now look at what OHEY have picked here. And a Wheelix in the jungle for game number 2. So Warrior maybe still on one side. No, it's going to be double assassin here, technically, moving into game 2. And if you look at what Elevate have drafted, Gore, that gravity surge, well, it's going to have plenty of targets to pull back in.
Yeah, anytime there's a jump on the side of Elevate, save for some of those CC immune ones, you're going to be able to pull them back. But also think about it, I mean, Heed, Spreen, their jumps are used either to engage, which means you're getting close to a Wheelish, which is bad news for you, or to disengage, which means you're putting your back to a Wheelish, which means she can knock you up, and that's bad news for you. And along with Dishonored, you're going to be able to have that. So maybe not the full-on synergy you expect to see out of a team, but just another knock-up available to the team in the kit for those team fights later on. I need to see a lot out of Kiermi, but this is the pick to make it happen.
On Spreen with a different mindset in this game as well. It was early game presence and then kind of converting that into late game dominance on the Osiris. It's going to have the Robin, so still looking for some of that early game pressure. And Gore, maybe in the long lane is a place to make it happen for Elevate. I mean, you have an Uller and a Ganesh. There is going to be some setup there on your side. It's Baronary, though, that has taken a decent amount of poke to start things off. First rotation from the junglers to the mid lane is going to get both down to about half HP. It's a good stun from Frasian. Shia taken low, but is going to be able to stay alive. Has to use the shell, though, Gore. That might open up some doors.
So until Baronary, I think, finishes off that Transcendence, or realistically hits maybe level 4, maybe level 5, depending on where you want to point it out, this is how this lane's going to go. But Kiermi is looking for a gank.
Kiermi is here. Shia, no shell. Up and over goes the Awilix, and Kiermi will strike first. The setup, perfect from Oceans and Frasian. And it wasn't really even all that much CC. They just took Shia low time and time again. And now the OHEY jungler is on the board.
That's the fight back. I don't necessarily think of specifically the Fafnir as being this, suppressing god that you'd have in support, although he does his fair share of damage and the stun is going to be nice early on. It's just the fact that between him and Hachiman, they're going to have a little bit faster clear than what we're seeing out of the Ganesh Uller as of right now, especially because they're focusing a lot of it to be poke-oriented as well, making it awkward for Baronary to maybe step up and fight. And then Kiermi just does, the patented minute 2 gank onto the duo lane, which has now just made it even harder for them to do anything.
And he patented 2.5-minute gank at Shia, who's just gotten his lunch money stolen by OHEY. 3 members staring at the Ganesh. 0-2, 2.5 minutes in. Is the Elevate support? It's a purple buff invade. It looks like it was able to be picked up by Oceans here this time. So the clear game plan is out, Gore, and OHEY, they want to pressure in this long lane as much as possible.
I mean, I'll be honest, you get Heed, I think Heed maybe is someone you need to look at shutting down at some point in this game, but Spreen, it's just a timer before the Raven stops hitting quite as hard as you'll see out of a late game of Wheelish. Keegs, I mean, Agni is one of the safer mages, has a really solid dash to get him out of there, plus a lot of self-peel in terms of stuns. So yeah, maybe you could be a little aggressive onto him, but you don't have to be. He's also not, this crazy huge burst mage. He is very much in that kind of middle between whether he's going to be providing kind of support for your team in forms of those stuns or that damage that comes down from his meteors. If I need to shut someone down, I'm looking at Shia and I'm looking at Baronary. They're the two that in the late game I think can make the biggest impact, and so make them suffer as much as you can early on, much like they are right here. And it's going to be harder to translate this Uller into the monster that he can be.
And it is kind of a different look at playstyle for Shia here in this game, isn't it? I mean, Yamoja, maybe right off the bat, more kill potential in this lane. Ganesh has to use the 1 just for a little extra wave push potential.
Yeah.
But I'm not at all surprised with the way that this Ganesh has been punished here in the early, whereas you might not be able to punish a Yamoja quite the same. Now once Shia starts to round out that level 4, level 5, the ultimate is online, the kill potential really maybe starts to spring here in this long lane, Gore. But I wouldn't say I'm surprised given the god combinations there in that long lane with the way things have gone.
And I will say the good news is both of those kills end up going on to Shia, who, if you're going to be able to bounce back from it, I not only, 1, expect Ganesh to be able to do so, but 2, your support's going to be the one that, admittedly, over time, yeah, you can maybe abuse them if they have a low level. It's kind of what we saw out of Ocean's last game was, 4 or 5 levels behind people when everyone else is level 20. That's when they start having the pressure. But you fall 1 level behind right now, you don't have Dharmic Pillars, and that's the worst case scenario for you. You don't have to worry too much about the damage you'll be taking.
There's a gank over to the mid lane. It's Amuel this time, and will pop the ultimate and drops back down. Spreen hanging just behind, though. Elects not to gank on in. There's a level 5 Awelix, though. Spreen has done a good job of maintaining some farm semblance there. Level 5, rather, for both of the junglers here in this game. This, though, I think is where things could really start to snowball, and it's the interaction you're seeing between Frasian and Bayroneri now. Level 6 to level 5, so not all that wide. But there is an advantage now for Frasian. Gold and a little bit of XP. Once the supports leave Gore, it's going to be tough for an Uller that's already behind.
And as we just saw in that last trade, the ever-present threat of just a solo kill that could come out at any given time, but it's realistically not only translated to potential for a solo kill, or maybe even a gank like Spreen has over there in solo, but it's the red buff in Bade that I was actually wanting to highlight there. The jungle over here has just not been elevates.
Right. Right, it's been forfeit from the moment the game kind of started, and once the second purple buff spawned, Kirmi was there, and even before that, it was a level 2 gank to start things off. There was a solo kill in the solo lane, but more of a gank kill, I suppose. So Elevate are able to pull one back here, Gore, getting Dishonored a touch behind to start things off. Now there's a 1-level lead, not only in the jungle, but in the solo lane for Elevate, so maybe that's the route back on in. We already saw what he, or Spreen really was able to do on that Osiris. Now you've given him the tools to maybe push this lead further against Dishonored that's maybe half a level behind.
I mean, being able to, again, you hit the gas pedal on that one, right? Find where you can take an advantage if you're Elevate and pull it back. Because right now, it doesn't necessarily feel like it's Bayroneri. He's going to be pretty safe, although maybe not safe enough when you have an ult like Phrasing can chase him down, right? It's just the damage numbers. So explore your options. Go to solo.
Well, it's two sides of the map now. One is forfeit if you're Elevate, and the other under a little bit of pressure if you're OHEY, and that's your solo lane. Purple, or blue buff rather, was invaded there. That's the small bit of interaction we saw. 3 members, though, from Elevate rotating over towards this middle lane. Keegsy, I haven't really been able to touch on it on this Agni. The Nuwa was an interesting pick. It's like the Venenu picks here in the mid lane with Keegs on the Agni, Amuel over on the Nuwa. A fun, maybe middle lane to watch.
And I think showcasing, like, Merlin, the Raijin, these picks that we typically see, I would argue, 7 games out of 10, most of the time we get to see them, but maybe not all the time. The reason they're picked up is because their consistency in what they provide is always going to be there. Now, Nuwa and Agni, they can have a great game where they are maybe even better than either of those other mages that I just listed, but they can have really bad games where you maybe don't want to see them again for a little while afterward. And I think that's the potential that they're bringing here. A lot of the mages this season, in my eyes, are still viable. It's just whether or not they're going to bring what your team needs. And I think Keegs is kind of what the team maybe needs right now in terms of setup. I just don't know if they're going to have enough damage for it. I mean, between him and Spreen, they're going to be able to hit decently hard, but as the game scales on into late, I expect to see Nuwa pass over Keegs in terms of damage. Kirmi should absolutely stay above Spreen in terms of damage when we start to translate into that later on. And so I don't know if this, I want to say maybe early mid-game composition for Elevate has the win potential that OHEY has.
Well, damage shouldn't be a problem for Amuel here in this game, as long as you're pressing ult, not necessarily on cooldown, but throughout the game, you can kind of free farm the damage on up and maybe make situations a little bit more uncomfortable on the map for Elevate, depending on where you're playing. It's another blue buff invade here. It's Spreen who's moved his way into the OHEY side of the jungle, dropped down the blue buff once more. Heed, though, is going to now see if there's a few other members of OHEY rotating through. Gravity Surge back in. Heed is low. Dharmic Pillar separates up this fight. There's the shell for some good shielding. Heed has found the kill. And now it's Shia who's going to move in as well and try to help things out, but unable to do so. Ocean's taken low. Spreen has another one now in this fight, but a double kill for the Kulkulin. It's a messy fight over in the solo, but it's a 2 for 2.
Maybe you're unhappy to lose your jungler there if you're OHEY, but I think being able to get Dishonored 3 kills over there in the solo lane now as he picks up that support makes it more than worthwhile. 3 onto him, so that level lead that was there for Heed is, gone, and probably then some. I expect to see Dishonored even hit level 4, or level 11, I should say, first. But now you're starting to see that oppression come through from OHEY everywhere. They're taking that aggression that they have and the wins they have on one side of the map, and they're turning it on right here in the solo lane, or in the duo lane, I should say, as well, where they can just see the map, see the control they've had. That red buff, it's theirs still. That purple buff, it's theirs still. Control around the Fury, it's theirs still. OHEY are poised to take the objectives they need to win.
Yeah, that's so important, for reasons you mentioned, where really the only foothold Elevate had in this game was in the solo lane there for a little while. It was continued blue buff invades on cooldown. The right side of the map was kind of going one way, left was going the other. Now it's really all for OHEY. Gold Fury, you point out, maybe the first objective here for OHEY to feel comfortable moving into a 2.8, soon to be 3k gold lead. XP matches that much the same. The gap, though, in the long lane, Gore, has just grown wider. Remember, it was this maybe one level lead, a little bit of gold here and there. After that solo kill, Bayroneri has just not been able to step up, just now completing that Transcendence, so he'll have to stack that one up. But that's the interaction I expect to see now. OHEY are just going to kind of poke and prod this Gold Fury, and if Elevate don't respond, it's going to be free.
Now that Transcendence is finished, yeah, maybe it's not fully stacked just yet, but just getting the item online, I think it makes Bayroneri more dangerous than he was before. Still 2 levels down compared to the opposite Hunter he's playing against, but the fact that he is Uller, and again, is going to start translating a little bit better into the late game, I think now that he has his main item online, it's going to help that out.
Well, the artillery from Keegsy is going to get rid of Amuel, so the first death of the game for the mid laner. A door open now for this Agni to pull back a little bit. The surprising damage from the power boots can sneak up on you there, especially when there's a Divine Ruin as well. Keegsy sticks around as it's Spreen who's rotating over. Takes a couple tower shots, but there's the transformation from Ocean. Stunned down over onto Spreen, and Kiermi gets the kill. It's a great turnaround after what had just happened, but Keegsy now with 2 and the last couple of minutes. Frasian, though, rotates over from the long lane now. Dharmic Pillars are going to try to lock back a few, but unable to do so. Dishonored pops the Thorns. He wants to keep going here. Shell doesn't get much value there. Dishonored 1 shot away from Shia, but thinks twice about diving the tier 2 tower. Heed, the last bastion of hope to turn this fight around for Elevate, and he's doing maybe a little bit more than that. Immune, and he turns around the kill. Dishonored feeling a little bit too confident. Gore, he's unable to add anything. He was 3-1-1. That was 3-2-1 after trying to go a bit too deep.
And Bayroneri's rotation to get Uller might be behind, but he's still Uller at the end of the day, and he's still going to have a lot of damage that is going to get dumped into you. You bite off more than you can chew, and well, that's what you get. At least if you're Dishonored this time around. But I think the biggest showcase, and something you highlighted at the very beginning of that, is the artillery start kill that Keegs got, right? Being able to drop those meteors down. And he's gone for those lifesteal boots. And then you had said, sneaky power from it, but also just engage and sustain that he's going to have from this. Maybe not the most you expect to see, but it's still something out of the Agni that is going to make it maybe a little more difficult to find these clean ganks on. Again, decent self-peel, decent setup, much like that. And while it's not the same as maybe hitting a Kraken and 100 to zeroing them, it's going to keep Amuel on his toes.
When Amuel, and look at that. Amuel walks back to lane, ult, stun, ult from Keegs, and Amuel has to go back to base. And it's the small moments where, even if you're not going to get a kill, you're going to be able to start pulling yourself a little bit ahead here in this mid lane, especially after Keegsy was about a level behind there for a little while. Already towards the top damage in this game is this Agni. So if there is now a route back in this game after solo lane is now, ahead, behind, he had a great fight there, so pulls a level ahead. Back and forth in the solo. Maybe mid lane is an area where Keegsy is going to be able to make a big difference for Elevate as they're 2k gold behind.
That's honestly where you have to figure something out, right? I mean, right now it is where can you find those wins? Spreen, it's been kind of quiet. And I mean, this is something that was maybe a little true in the last game as well, but we haven't really gotten to see Spreen pop off, show up. But 2-2-2 means they're at least not losing overall. They're on par with Kiermi. And I think that's realistically the same for both junglers. I mean, it went from pretty big impact, at least early on, where we could talk about Kiermi a lot. And now neither of them have really been doing too much, at least in terms of engage. I'd love to see a little more impact out of them. I don't care really where it comes from, if it's deciding to shut down you know, Kiegsy because he's the one who seems to be a somewhat win condition for Elevate, or if it's to get back over there and shut down Baronary, or if you want to go in onto Heat or someone. But I feel like the junglers need to pick up that role right now because it really is, like you said, kind of coming down. I think I've seen more setup from Kiegsy than Shia and Spreen together, which is maybe not the right way for it to be.
Well, I think for Kiermi, keeping the pace that was 2 kills in 2.5 minutes affected, not completely secured for the Awilix, but that's a pace that's always going to be, it's going to be always difficult to kind of keep up with that. But 1-0-1 becomes 2-2-3, 13 minutes later after those opening couple of kills, things have absolutely slowed down. Spreen hears you. He wants to make a difference as well. If nothing else, Amuel is now down to half HP. Whether or not that completely forces back this Nuwa or not is another question. OHEY maybe trying to set up some deep jungle coverage here ward-wise. Elevate have a couple over on the OHEY side of the map that just timed out. You'd all surprised, though, with the level lead that Frasian has in the long lane, still a 2-level lead, so power over Baronary, that there hasn't been more of an emphasis around this Gold Fury.
I mean, I think it's surprising more than not that OHEY haven't put too much pressure on the Gold Fury. I mean, there's been a lot of two-man rotations, even maybe sometimes more, from Elevate onto that solo side, especially 5 minutes ago, I think we saw a couple of them. And those are the moments to go in on the Gold Fury. No one's going to be able to make that big rotation play. But, I mean, he's 4-0-1. Your Hunter has this lead. Do something with it as much as you can. And so far, it's maybe occasionally been the rotation, maybe looking for some engages in the jungle, but nothing big and game-changing just yet. And that's the how do you play with a lead thing coming into it, you know? Like, when you do get ahead, what are you supposed to do with it? Obviously, you don't want to get so aggressive that you throw it away, but you don't want to be so passive that they just catch up at the end of the day, and you have to figure out how to make it work.
Baronary always going to be tough to lock down. Maybe the one window that Frasian had to complete a solo kill, he took a few moments ago. And I mean, that's the interaction we'll see here in this long lane, aside from any ganks, as Frasian just clears the wave. Baronary backs off while he does it, and we're back to our respective bases. It's half HP on the tier 1 tower in the long lane. Could be a fight here for Elevate over in the short lane, though. Look at that tower for OHEY, quite low on one side of the map, but OHEY want nothing to do with it. Instead, they're going to start off this Gold Fury. Teleport not available for Heat to get back into this fight immediately. Baronary hanging around just behind this fight. Kiermi sees him there, though, pulls back the Ullr. Baronary locked in, and Kiermi has now found this kill. Dishonored still on the chase, and Oceans as well is going to transform and try to keep things up. Shia, 10% HP. In goes Oceans, and Amuel will find his first kill of the game right out of that mid lane. 3 members of Elevate left retreating back beneath that tier 2 tower. Teed moves back in, and he's knocked down Frasian, a perfect target to give Elevate a bit of breathing room here. Look at how much damage this Osiris is soaking up, and now Spreen has rejoined. Spreen has found a kill. It's a 5v3, and somehow Elevate are able to keep themselves in it.
Well, unfortunately for Oceans, this is the wrong place to be, but lucky for Oceans, Kiegs misplaces, or I guess mispredicts is the better way to word it, the stun. Unfortunately, it's not going to be enough to get Oceans out alive, but I think being able to save his life for a little bit allows Dishonored to disengage from that one cleanly. I think that's just well played from Elevate, more specifically around respawn timers, or being able to come back into it and re-engage in the fight after getting pushed out early on. I think, OHEY, if you get that pressure there, maybe you find that first pick or something in terms of pressure, maybe it's worth falling back to that Gold Fury, because now it looks like you might lose that alongside that Pyro.
Amuel nearly got a couple of kills there with his ultimate. It is Gold Fury Gore. Good eyes started up by Elevate. Actually, they're going to back themselves off. I think there's a world where they just finish that, but I guess cautious is key here, especially when you're kind of hanging on the knife edge. It is a gold lead now pulled back, as small as it is, 700 gold for Elevate. But after over 2,500 for OHEY, and I kind of agree with some of the sentiment that you had, where it just maybe slowed down a little bit too much. You got 2 kills if you're OHEY, and then you overextended, and Elevate somehow turn around a 3v5 and get themselves right back into the game. Still a gap, though, in the long lane. 2 levels in the lead is Frasian over Baronary, so the left side of the map still a great target for some aggression. Dharmic Pillars drops down, but it's not enough to steal away the Gold Fury. That's going to really even things back up as OHEY are able to get out in full strength.
I'll admit, I'm confused as to why Elevate dropped it in the first place. You know, it's safety for safety's sake. It was what it felt like more than, hey, we think we're in danger. Even now, you're going to be able to get out of this engagement at least somewhat clean. Shia, though, taking a lot of damage, and now you've got Kiermi over here. I feel like they just kind of gave OHEY an advantage, and now OHEY are taking it and pushing it.
I'm going to try to push it a little further onto Spreen, who had a big turnaround fight a few moments ago, picking up a couple of kills. Keegs underneath his Tier 1 tower. A couple of kills now cascading for OHEY all over the map. It's another 5v3 potential here for OHEY. And as slow as they've maybe played their lead up to this point, I think this is now the right call. We've gotten a few kills. Let's let the low people go back and heal up, and we can push the map wave-wise elsewhere.
There's a period of time there where everyone on OHEY fell back, but Dishonored was between the Tier 1 and Tier 2 in mid, and
right.
He decided he was just going to start backing, but unfortunately gets caught out. He still makes it out of there, but I just think it's funny to see like the solo lane position. He's going in exactly the way you need him to in that fight to make it work out, but he's the one who kind of gets left out to dry just because that's, you know, he was in a good position. That turned sour just because of OHEY's retreat, but unfortunately for Elevate, it not only didn't get them any kills, it's ended up losing them 2 towers anyway. I think OHEY are playing it, again, safe with a lead, which as of right now is slowly but surely allowing them to build even more on top of it. The gold's starting to get to the point where it's almost out of hand, not so much so that Elevate couldn't catch up, but 2,000, 3,000 as it starts to rise up is not necessarily insurmountable, but more difficult to overtake than it has been in the past.
We're right back at that spot where OHEY were 10 minutes ago. A 2.5 to 3k gold lead. This could be a big one. Frasian being now dove beneath a Tier 2 tower, but is able to sidestep and get out alive without burning any active. It's Spreen now, who's the ire of Kiermi's eye, but the jungler for Elevate will be able to survive here this time around. Tier 1 tower just falls in long lane, so Elevate are able to pull back a little bit of that gold. The next target has to be this Fire Giant Gore if you're not going to wait another 2.5 minutes for the Fury to come back off of respawn. That's going to give these solo laners a great opportunity to fight on their side of the map, or on the solo lane side of the map here, and as differencing as there is in the roles across the table, the solo laners about on even footing.
I do like Cucullin's team fight a little bit more than I like Osiris's, but I think, especially with the way that we saw Elevate play Osiris last game, that doesn't necessarily mean Osiris is going to have a bad team fight. It just depends on where he decides to focus it down. Again, Amuel, as you had mentioned, maybe his ult being able to kind of be a saving grace for him, especially against something like an Osiris. Spreen or Heed dumps a lot of cooldowns into you, and Amuel just presses forward and can get out of that, get a little bit of damage on everybody in return. But it is still, you know, a vulnerability that can be explored, and Elevate being able to turn some of this pressure around. I just worry, because it's been this way for both teams. When they get their small leads, whether it's 2,000, 3,000, or more, they have been playing very cautiously, which is a great way to not throw the game, but it's also a way that allows the other team an avenue back into it. They can fall back and farm and close the gap on some of the experience and gold that you've been able to pick up. And I feel like Elevate, I mean, they had pressure there in mid, and now it's a Fire Giant that looks good for OHEY.
It's going to start it up here. Keegsy in range, and OHEY will take it down and take down the Elevate mid laner to boot. It's the different score and mindset of playing to win versus playing not to lose. And I think that's a call from OHEY that I really like. You got this gold lead, you've got your team in a position to start up and finish this Fire Giant quickly, and that's a play where you're playing to win. And now you've got full 5 members with FG, mid laner down for Elevate, some Tier 2 towers still on the map. This is where OHEY can really push their lead.
And it echoes the conversation we were having around this time last game, where it's, look, there were 3 Tier 2 towers up now, only 2 Tier 2 towers, but a Tier 1 still up over there in the short lane. It's good and a lot of gold for OHEY.
Well, playing to win is good, but you got to play cautiously, and diving a Phoenix isn't necessarily cautious. Elevate are going to move themselves back. Baron Airy pouring out damage from the backline, but Heat is taken low nonetheless. Oceans going to be silenced out now by Shia underneath this Phoenix. The Phoenix didn't really take all that much damage at all. And now maybe this is a call for OHEY, realizing Keegsy is back in the game. You look at the long lane, you look at the short lane. Neither of them really pushing in one direction. Let's start to push some map pressure elsewhere.
Yeah, I think at this point, you can, one, burn a Primal Fury, so I like this call immediately that they have. But also, yeah, get the tier 1 over there in the right lane. The tier 2s that are still up on the table, try to chase them down, maybe even win this fight.
Shia, the first to the call, and now the first to reach half HP. Some good damage shit down by Amuel. Killing spree in the jungle for Kirmi, and Frasian is found to kill. A sidestep isn't enough to save the life of Kirmi, but Dishonored is going to get rid of Heed elsewhere in the fight. A 3-for-1 so far. Spreen lurking in the backline. Look at this call, Gormizer. They might just try to tank up this Phoenix and take it down. There's no waves pushing anywhere for OHEY at this moment.
Well, they have minions thanks to Nuwa, though, so that's going to help them out. And realistically, you have a Hunter with Fire Giant plus someone who can make it a lot easier for your tanks. If Amuel goes down, that does take away some of their pushing power, but it shows what Phrasen has in terms of turning potential.
Or they want to keep going. It's just Shia alive, and OHEY, they found themselves on the Titan. The Dharmic Pillars are just going to lock the 3 members of OHEY right where they want to be. Solo face tanking this Titan down to 3k HP. Shia is going to try to keep him in this game, but Frasian just needs to stand there. Lifesteal up a little bit. It's a double kill now for the Ganesh. Ocean's plenty healthy enough. 1k HP left on the Titan, and it'll stand and Elevate live to fight another day.
That, and oh man, there's so many things to think about there, but it sucks if that tier 1 tower is down over there and right. Maybe you're able to kill it there. Maybe you have a little bit more time as Oceans to be able to burn it down. Those tier 2s are gone. Maybe he goes... Well, actually, at that point, he definitely goes down a lot faster, and you just win the game. And so that Fire Giant, well, it's still only on Oceans, and it's only there for another minute. Not going to be utilized, I think, to the full potential that you can have. Even though you get that Phoenix, even though it's close, I feel like there maybe was a little bit of split aggression from them, because again, now look where Elevate are. They're able to get aggressive. They're able to come in and combat this. These fire minions aren't going to make it too far down mid lane, so they can try to look for some picks, maybe a fight in return.
I gotta say, Gore, though, it doesn't work out for OHEY, but that's exactly what I've wanted to see out of them. Calls like that. Elevate, though, are going to try to turn things around here with the fight underneath the tier 2 tower. Amuel will complete the execute down onto Baron Ares, so no more Uller for the next minute or so. Oceans still feeling confident here. We'll find the stun down onto Shia. The return stun from Amuel is there as well. The full-on chase from OHEY as Oceans will transform. Kiegsy, he's found his way into the backline, tries to dash on through, but Frasian thanks him for it to the tune of a couple auto attacks. Spreen looking to sidestep Kirmi, but Kirmi is okay to take that fight. Heed, Shia, both half HP, but Heed's reaches 0. Now 3 members down, and Gore OHEY, this time, they might be able to end the game with the Titan still hovering around that 1k HP.
Yeah, you want to fight that large. Spreen and Shia don't necessarily have the 2v5 potential I think you want here, and that Titan's still low.
Alright, Dishonored is going to complete the game here for OHEY, and we are tied up at 1 now. Elevate a big game number 1. OHEY, not without some minor throws in there, Gore,
Yeah.
and really, if nothing else, it was just delaying the game. But what I was going to kind of mention prior to that tower dive from Elevate, attempted tower dive, is I liked the original Titan Siege call from OHEY. I mean, it's gutsy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't work out this time, it doesn't win you the game, but it's that playing to win mentality. You know, you got yourself a lead, let's try it out, let's see. We're not going to lose off of that. And you know what they did? They set up the easiest final Titan Siege of their life. They had a few more auto attacks to do it, so I like that mindset. I love that mindset from OHEY. This one hovering around, right around that 30-minute mark. Remember, it was the long lane dominance early for Kirmi, rotated over to Shia a couple of times, and really that lead never went away for Frasian.
Yeah, I think what we ended up seeing, and I think what worked out well, is like that, like you said, that team fight at the very end. I think if Elevate end up winning this one, we probably look at specifically, hey, you dove that Titan too soon and you weren't able to kill it. Maybe that was throwing, but because they're able to go back, that's really solid for them. But like you said, the Hunter being so far ahead, especially with minions from Nuwa being able to allow him to go in and open up that Phoenix, open up that siege in the first place. I think just that lead in the duo lane that started, what, 2 minutes into the game, definitely made it so much easier for them to coast in that late game.
Well, Gormizer, these are 2 teams looking for a set win, and both of them have an opportunity in Game 3. You and I, we're going to take a quick breather. You at home, you can take a breather as well. We'll be right back with Game number 3. I can't wait to get into game number 3, so why would we? Picks and bans for game 3. Already joining us, Elevate versus OHEY. Elevate got off to a great start. OHEY answers back with finding their footing maybe in game, or in the mid to late game there in game 2, Gore. And they find that edge. They find that extra little bit of sharpness and push their advantage, the Fire Giant being the big turning point.
And I think it is, that first Fire Giant that just opens up a lot of opportunities for them. Both of the teams played more cautiously that game, even when they had a lead, which for OHEY, it was, some calls that maybe slowed the game down, but like you said, eventually making those play-to-win calls. For Elevate, again, I'm still perplexed by the one Fury they decided to drop. There were a lot of moments where it felt like they could, pounce on OHEY, and they decided not to, even though they, had the gods that could do it. So this is maybe something I think is a big turnaround for them, maybe even getting the Morrigan back into their wheelhouse here to make the big plays.
Actually, now that I think about it, maybe there are moments where OHEY are trying to push that advantage. They have a 5v3, Elevate just turn it around. So maybe it's really just Elevate having great team fighting despite a numbers disadvantage there in game 2. I don't know, a lot of back and forth. Fun game there in game number 2, but we are tied up. As mentioned, picks and bans already for Game 3. First wave of bans already complete. More of the same, really, from both sides here. The Morrigan, though, for Elevate, I think that discussion on whether or not it worked or it just got a win in Game 1 still certainly up for debate. But it is a Morrigan nonetheless for Elevate, and that is not up for debate.
I think it's going to be very... Well, it hinges upon what do you draft and what gets banned away from you. I think last time, as much as, I wanted to see more changes that were impactful, I think realistically there weren't a lot of options for Morrigan to change into that would make the big impact, right? A lot of what you had highlighted, when it comes through, specifically I think it was OHEY banned out the Hunbat, so there was no double fear, no evil available. And it is those opportunities that you can find when beads are down that Morrigan is going to be able to come in. Your assassin burned them the first time. Morrigan, now can burn the god the second time. And it's those things that are open up. I wonder if Elevate are going to maybe be a little more synergistic with this Morrigan altar, if they're just going to have her damage flat out.
Well, if I'm a backliner for OHEY, I'm shaking a little bit. The thought of one Vamana sprinting at me is scary enough, but Morrigan transforms into 2 Vamana, suddenly you have to worry about it twofold. So, hey, have a chance to maybe draft some peel around that. Still an interesting pick in the mid lane, Gore. One that we have seen work here in the SCC. I think it's Picarino that we saw yesterday really do well with this Scylla. It's a hit or don't type of god, right? I mean, you hit your root, a crush, half their HP is gone, and I'm a monster to follow up. Scylla has the potential to reach those heights. It's just whether or not you can get there that really leaves things up for debate, I think.
And I like that OHEY are going for it. Again, Scylla is someone that I think we've seen be very comfortable with these games as we've gone through the week. Someone that maybe she isn't in that list of top 5 mages that you're going to see picked up. Maybe top 5 she might be, but we do see her come through and have a big impact. And one of the best things she brings is objective secure. One of the downsides is now Elevate can take that objective secure. Yes, Morrigan herself won't have it, but I think having that Scylla on the table here opens it up for Elevate to maybe play again just a little more aggressive in some of these team fights.
Good point. Yeah, outside of just raw damage numbers, the secure potential from the Scylla absolutely on the table. Kumbhakarna, a support that I think we saw when the invade meta was kind of in full swing earlier on here in Phase 1, technically Phase 2 now of the SCC, but kind of Phase 1 of SMITE Pro for this year. Kumbhakarna was a pretty popular pick. Ramnogor has recently started to become a popular pick. Some number changes on his end, higher damage. Cyclone Spin, I think it is, in the SPL that plays it somewhat frequently, and it looks good.
And a lot of, honestly, a lot of carries, a lot of players in SMITE should have a Ram in their pocket just because of how potent he has been in the past. Someone that you've been able to pick up and have that huge impact on and be comfortable with. And again, when I think of some of the best highlights I think I've gotten to see, a lot of them fall back to Ram snipes, whether it's that last hit for a kill, whether it's an objective steal. There's a lot of fun that can be had around that god. The only downside I think I have with Elevate's draft is that Sun Wukong, which it's not the worst thing. I like Wukong. I think he's got a good stun. He's got good setup. But to take some words from Finch, he's really good at keeping himself alive more than he is at some of the other things he does. I think here in the jungle, though, we've actually seen him be more successful than I've seen him in the solo lane.
Well, Gore, it's time to decide who gets their first win in this phase of the SCC between Elevate and OHEY. Both teams have shown us that they have the potential, and this is what I expect to see out of this long lane here. She already using that blink, but when you have this Bacchus, you want to set yourself up for success early on. Even if you don't get this kill, getting Frasian down to half HP, certainly a great start. The downside, of course, with the Bacchus being once you get those full, once you get the full kind of suite of rotations online, you're going to be thirsty for mana after a few levels.
Yeah, I mean, even right now, you can tell like he's not going to be able to drink enough to keep up with it, or if he is, he's not going to have enough mana to be able to jump in and kind of control it all. Yeah, so unfortunate for Bacchus early on. It's very difficult, I think, to make him work, but I like what they're doing because so far, it kind of feels like the game has been he who controls the duo lane controls the game. Right.
Has kind of felt that way, hasn't it? Remember, Frasian really held on to a 2-level lead entirely through game number 2 after some early ganks from Kiermi were able to set the table for him, and Frasian ate dinner happily thanks to his jungler. Now, Akali maybe isn't going to be opening quite as many doors for you early on. I mean, the Awilix really rotated through and set things up twice over onto Xia. But you need a little bit more baking time, I suppose, on this Kali to really get her revved up.
You echoed my thoughts exactly. The minute you mentioned that, I was like, yeah, you know what? I liked when Kiermi was over here early. Like a 2-minute gank, that's not a bad idea. Oh, wait, no, it's Kali. Okay, we're not going to see Kiermi for a little while. It may be impactful on some fights in mid, maybe some poke, but I sincerely doubt we're going to see anything, potentially game-changing like you would see out of an Awilish. I think comboed with this Scylla specifically, like we see here in mid, there's a lot more potential for a kill than even a 3v2 over there in duo, because just the burst that's going to come down, even from a level 2 crush, is a little bit higher than what you're going to have out of Elevate or their duo lane right now, out of Baroneri's shots. So we might have to put a pause on, well, at least big ganks to the duo lane from the Kali, but when Baroneri, I mean, he can continue using this aggression.
Well, Baroneri has to be defensive for a moment. Beads used. Xia low on mana. Won't be able to set up the stun for a kill over onto Frasian. But everyone half HP here in this long lane. Only Keegs is somewhat close by. Jungler's on the opposite side of the map. I suppose kind of continuing that conversation with the Kali, it's sort of a difference in setup. Like, she absolutely can find kills early, but the setup might have to come from elsewhere because she can't just freely chase people down over and over and over again. So long lane is left on a bit of an island here. Now on kind of that flip side of the coin, Gore, is Spreen on this Wukong maybe someone that you can expect to make a more of an immediate impact?
Now that he has 72 transformations online, I want to see him fighting more often. I want to see this Tiger form come out for the stun, maybe going into the Ox form to get some knockups. Either way, both are going to be potent for setting up his team, right? And Wukong, again, it's kind of sleeper damage on his 2 that comes through. But you go in, you get a big spin onto 2 people here for like Frasian and Oceans. You set them up for Baronary to find some cleaner shots, maybe a little bit easier damage to close off the kill, especially as we're starting to approach that level 5 territory for the duo lane. That means you're going to have a huge ult like Intoxicate available, the snipes from Baronary. I like the team fight from Elevate a little bit more if Wukong wants to hang out over here, but it seems like, well, Kali is doing what Kali should be doing, which is farming so she can get some attack speed items online. But the Wukong is just kind of hanging out in the jungle. He's not been looking at any of the lanes.
Yeah, both junglers just happy to farm up here up to this point. I mean, obviously we've talked about the Morrigan, kind of ad nauseum up to this point. But usually in a game like this, when there's a Kali, we're thinking, one team has a Kali, and that chainsaw is going to be ripping by the time the late game rolls around. Well, Kirmi's far enough ahead. Keegs is just going to be able to replicate that Kali, so certainly will be the opportunity for Elevate to mitigate some early game pressure here, really on either side. Hasn't been much though. 4.5 minutes into this game, I believe in game 1 and in game 2, we've had at least a kill or 2 up to this point, absolutely, in game number 2. Similar look in the long lane for Dishonored though, has the Kulkullen on his side, and one that was able to grab a few kills, I think a triple kill notably in one of the fights last game, made some decent impact for OHEY really around the bend there in game 2 to get them the win. The Vamana, though, is kind of a linear dynamic. You sprint into the backline and you swing away on backliners and hope that you're able to find some kills.
That's the thing I like. The Vamana jungle and Vamana solo, realistically, they reach the same late game no matter what. It's still Vamana at the end of the day, and he's still going to be trying to do the same thing, like you said, jump into the backline to do much like they're trying to do the Phrasen there, where it's just try to find some kills and poke.
That's Blink and Sleep onto Shia. Spreen is here. Frasian, half HP. Blink forward from Spreen. Epic Uppercut will connect over onto the jungler. I'm a Monster connects for half HP, but here's the survivability and the re-engage potential from the Wukong. Kirmi, full-blown retreat mode, has the ultimate and will use the ultimate. And low HP, one more snipe will do it from Baronary from the sky and Elevate. They'll grab first blood.
Keegs kind of caught me off guard by transforming into the Wukong as well there. I mean, 2 somersault clouds, it's a lot of sustain for either of them to be able to come through. But again, using the 72 transformations, using that spin just to get a little bit of damage, a little bit of slow applied to make sure that you can connect these shots. I think the team fight for Elevate just plays out a little bit better as a whole. I think they're gods. Like those engagements in the jungle better than you're going to see out of OHEY until this Kali is able to, have that turnaround potential that we've seen from a late game Kali. But as of right now, especially with Keegs being able to kind of keep that heads up play, I think Spreen showcased what they could do with Osiris earlier, and it's a dangerous slope to be on if you are Kirmi, because you can't take the fights that Spreen is going to be trying to force.
Right, one Wukong is difficult enough to track down, but 2 is almost back-breaking there. There's some presence now in the solo lane. It's Dishonored who is looking towards that blue buff. He's going to get stunned down here, and with Spreen rotating through, that'll be a free kill over to Elevate. Now blue buff finally locked down for Elevate. Blue buff is coming up shortly here from OHEY. You could push your advantage a little bit further, but maybe playing smart instead of over-aggressive here for Elevate, and another kill pulled over to the Order side.
And it went from 0 to 2, I guess, real fast there for them. I mean, being able to get that aggression all of a sudden was a good pickup, but now they're turning it into something more, very similar to what we actually saw out of OHEY last game and out of Elevate first game, where, hey, we won this fight, now let's get the purple buff. Hey, we got this purple buff, now let's take the red buff. They start stripping your jungle away, and unfortunately for the Chaos side teams in both of those, it has resulted in some big deficits that have been hard to overcome from early on, and even now, it's not stopping Elevate. They're still poised to try and steal this one away.
Well, just one tier of boots differential in the long lane, so once these hunters rotate over to this red buff invade, won't be all that much different. But it is red buff drop down here, and it's Amuel who's going to be able to get over and pick that one up nonetheless. But look at this differential that is not only formed in the long lane, Gore, 1 level lead for Bayer and Airy, but a 2 level lead, maybe 1.5 for Keegs, as Amuel is able to pull one back. This Morgan has already pulled a small advantage here in the mid lane.
Yeah, being able to pick it up, I think being a part of one kill has helped, but also the aggressiveness and the aggressive nature of Elevate when they do get this lead. They know how to play with it. That's the one thing I think I'm going to have to give them a little more credit than OHEY. OHEY pushed and pressured Elevate, but they were still a little timid about fighting them because Elevate could clap back. Elevate don't care if you can clap back. They know they have an advantage right now, and so they keep pushing that into your
right.
buffs. And maybe it's, you know, the unfortunate blink from Spreen where he ends up right inside the mez from Oceans alongside his teammate. But, you know, you're not getting that red buff's not the end of the world. They forced OHEY to be so scared just to get
right.
that buff. And again, like forcing out relics, forcing out abilities and rotations. I think it's keeping OHEY on their toes, and it gives Elevate a good feel to their fight.
Yeah, there's really that mental game. Dishonored is on the receiving end of some good poke as blue buffs back off of cooldown. So junglers will make their way over to the right-hand side of the map over here. Elevate really dictating the pace here up to this point. I don't think all that surprising, Gore, to a lot of points I think that you've brought up, more immediate and kind of confirmable engage. Oceans, I think, is going to be pulling a lot of the engage weight for OHEY. Dishonored as well, with these big knockups, has the blink on his side, so the Kulkullen, once rotate time comes for these solo laners, it's going to make a difference. Look at that damage onto Spreen. Amuel is going to make Spreen think twice. It is a red buff now off of cooldown for OHEY. Into the mid lane goes Kierme. Keegs transforms over into the Wukong. Up to the sky he goes. Ocean's in the back line, though, so retreat paths are cut off. Keegs deleted by Amuel here, and OHEY has been able to pull one back. Heed, though, will find his way into the Scylla, and down goes one more. So Elevate 3-1 in the lead here, 1v1, and that's a 2-level differential there. Frasian's able to get the kill. Now makes it to a 1-level differential. Frasian now with the kill on the board.
And Dishonored trying to keep the fight going. And he forces Heed, Spreen, Shia all to kind of stay at bay as of right now. I think that's a good win for OHEY being able to pick that up. Yeah, you lose Amuel, so maybe not the best end case for you, but a good solo kill over there for your carry. I think something to keep everyone in the game a little bit better. And while it might lose you a little bit in mid, it is maybe going to help catch you up in other places. The only downside is nothing happened for Kierme, and that 2-level, now 1-level, so maybe 1.5 there in favor of Spreen. He's going to be feeling that 8 ways to Sunday.
Now, one thing we have seen, and continue to see throughout this set, is really the supports poking and prodding for every amount of engage they can find. Both of them picking up the Traveler shoes, so get some extra movement speed, not only right out of the fountain, but some extra movement speed just right on top, thanks to their boots of choice. So I expect to see this Kumbhakarna, this Bacchus, continue to move themselves forward and try to find engagements for their team.
I love it because the dynamic between the two supports, this game is just so much different than it was before. Oceans is set up kills to be able to allow, you know, Amuel to pick them up as they fall down, Phrasen maybe to lock them down, or Kierme to be in that right position. Shia, on the other hand, is Bacchus. It is, I'm going to stun you, I'm going to chase you down myself, and most importantly, at least to me, intoxicate. If 2 or 3 of them are standing together, tons of damage for this ult. Plus, probably one of my favorite CCs in the game that comes down from Intoxicate, making the other team drunk and having them stagger around. But also the fact that that can be objective secure. It's just so much in terms of what Bacchus can bring. And I think Oceans is going to have to be at the top level with these mezzes, with the control that he brings on this Kumba, to make sure that Amuel, to make sure that Kierme can kind of pick up where he is leaving them off. The best thing for this team is the fact that that setup helps out the 2 late game carries they have. And honestly, Scylla, Kali, man, give it another 10 minutes and I'm scared of OHEY and every engagement they decide to take.
I'm already scared of Amuel if I'm Spreen. Just a moment ago was a Sikkim Crush that did about 2/3 of his HP, so the potential is already there for a full-blown one-shot if that door is opened. Heat has gotten to the point as well where he's going to be wildly difficult to deal with, and I think this is a good call. When you've got the escape potential of this Vimana and got a little extra tankiness online, start to proxy out some waves, make Dishonored think about where he's going to rotate.
Yeah, get in there, dude. Just cause trouble for OHEY. Make them think about it, because what are they going to do? Go on you? I mean, you're a Vamana with a breastplate and a Frostbound hammer. They're not going to outrun you in the right opportunity. So they have to be worried about Heed, much like you were pointing out earlier on. It'd be just as scary if Keegs decides to transform over into Heed. 2 Vamanas going into the back line. That could be very scary for Amuel and Frazier.
Let's start up to Gold Fury, says Elevate. OHEY are close by. It's Kierme more immediately. I'm a monster used defensively by Amuel this time around. Gold Fury peeled off of stun down over onto Kierme. Ultimate is popped, but Spreen is there for return stun. Now there's 2 Wukongs on the map once more. It's Keegs looking for the chase. Spreen drops down Kumba into his passive elevator, storming the gates here, and Veronari will strike the shots for his second kill of this game underneath the tier 2 tower. Amuel and Frasian can be able to stay alive. Dishonored transforming back into his standard self here in a few moments. Gold Fury is still up here, Goremizer, so Elevate could zone and pick up 2 kills and the Fury on the back.
Well, it looks like Amuel's low enough that Heat is going to be able to go into the back line, and that is not good.
Oh, no.
Exactly what you want out of your 2 warriors. You get the zone, you get the Fury, and you get, what was that, a 4 for 0?
Yeah, feels that way. And that's a great start and turnaround, not necessarily turnaround, but a great start in kind of breaking the back of OHEY here in this one. A 4.5k gold lead, 6k in the experience department. And I think maybe most impactful and somewhere close to most important is now the level differential in the Vamana and the Kulkullet. I mean, you look at a Frostbound Breastplate of Valor with Thorns and Teleria boots Vamana. Gore, it seems like he's maybe able to just kind of do what he wants here at this point.
And it feels like it, right? I mean, Heat being able to get into the backline the way he did, and again, no one being able to escape him. If Amuel doesn't have Sentinel up, well, he's not getting out of there. If Kierme doesn't have his stun up to either self-peel or his leap up to get away, he's not getting out of there. And maybe, yeah, this jungler has a little more options than the mid laner, but he also has to use some of those to peel for his team. I think there's just so much, unfortunately, for OHEY to run away from that someone is going to catch you. And, well, my money's always going to be on the guy that has an obnoxiously long dash on Vamana. It comes up fast enough, right? Especially with Keegs transforming into this Wukong. You get either 2 Tiger Stuns. No matter what, you have 2 different forms of chase down coming from them. 3 warriors running you down at any one time is a nightmare for a mage and a backliner all in one.
It's a 3-level difference here in the solo lane now as the Vamana continues to assert really whatever pressure he wants. Low tier 1 tower, both in right and in mid. Elevate could push this advantage just a little bit further. Not all that much jungle presence really here on the right side of the map. I think it's a smart call. Seems to maybe just forfeit, hope that Dishonored is able to stay alive. Will be difficult as Shia tries to find the stun. That's a good knock-up ultimate, though, from Dishonored. Thorns is popped. It's Heed who's tanking Spreen. He's here to help as well. Into the corner goes Dishonored, and we'll be able to heal up just a touch, stay alive a little bit longer, but Spreen will finally finish off the shot. I'm thinking that's done a couple seconds before it really was. It is done and dusted nonetheless. Now Keegs has found an opening in the mid lane. Epic uppercut connects, but transformed again into the Wukong is Keegs, so he'll stay alive. There's map pressure now building on this right-hand side of the map, Gore. It's going to be a tier 1 tower that goes down. How far to Elevate want to push becomes the next question.
And how much are they willing to risk? I think the level lead Heat has and the control that they're exercising over here, specifically on the right-hand side of the map, is large. But there is a certain point where the conversation turns into overstaying your welcome, right? How long are you going to be here, and how much can you get before you are maybe hanging out a little longer than you need to? And, well, as of right now, they make the right call. They fall back. They have 4 times the amount of kills that OHEY has been able to pick up. Kali's, I would argue, maybe 1 to 2 items off from still being able to turn this around. 1 item in a good fight from Kierme here is going to be nice, but realistically, with the level deficit that you have on the jungler, maybe you're looking at 2 items before you can get a good fight. So
sure,
he needs to focus on farming still, which is kind of unfortunate. We're starting to get closer to the 20-minute mark. Being level 14, you can feel that it hurts in the jungle.
There are 2 levels of differential effectively everywhere. Solo, jungle has 3, mid has 2, 2 in the support role, 2 in the hunter role. All in Elevate's favor. Everywhere you look, OHEY is being punished out of this game. And at this point, Gore, although we're only 18 minutes in, it's a 7K gold differential, and that's when we start asking, all right, what's OHEY's avenue back into this game? Still must be Kirmi, as you know, one big item, one big fight turnaround could be there. But when everything is so far behind, maybe you're just hoping Elevate reach that level 20, and then you can really start to play catch-up from then on out. But it's going to be so difficult when you look at the team comp that they have built up, especially now that Keegs, I mean, think about the conversation we had after Game 1. All right, Morgan technically got a win, but, like, was it really? I think Keegs has been great this game. The Wukong transformations have been there, building more into power, do more immediately into Charon's coin after that. So this Morgan's going to be hurting as well.
Unfortunately, this is where things could potentially start to get turned on their head. It depends on if Shia can make it out of there, and they're going to be able to get aggressive. Amul's in trouble.
All right, Baron Airy will open things up with the kill here. Kirmi beneath that tier 1 tower. Up, down goes Keegs, but the ultimate will save the Kali's life. Spreen looking for a land down target, and it'll be, yeah, no, I'm hoping he jumps back in. He won't this time around, and it is still Heed on the front line, so it's going to be a tier 1 tower that eventually goes down. Gore, Amul still back for the next 30 or so seconds. A great fight for Elevate.
I think really good, again, get in, get out, you get the pick you need. Maybe you use a little more than you needed to get that one, but you are able to lock down Amul, and when I'm looking at it, it's not just the level lead in the jungle, it's not just keeping down Kirmi. The longer this game goes, the better it will be for Amul. Scylla hurts late game, and that still somehow feels like I'm not giving it enough emphasis as it goes into the again, the late game that it comes through, but I'm a monster. It's going to be huge. Crush, it's going to be huge. You're going to have to deal with a lot of it, but it's a 3-level difference now in mid, and as was just highlighted at Polynomicon, which means that you're going to see Keegs hitting even harder, more often. It's just going to be difficult. You have to pick and choose your battles so carefully if you're OHEY. The avenue to victory is still in there, and honestly, some of it is just doing what they're doing now, which is waiting it out, right? You're trying to get the farm to make those level differences not be so large, make the gold difference not be so huge, get what looks like it should be a chin size, whether it's going to be that or Executioner online for Kirmi. Either way, get one of them online to get some attack speed so you can get into a fight and feel like you're doing something now. Because now that Kirmi's on this item, once it takes into that tier 3, if Amul is able to stay alive, that's the potential to turn the fights around.
Frasian has to use his ultimate to escape here. I am nervous, though. I mean, as we get into the late game, yes, Kali, yes, Amul. A late game Rom doesn't necessarily get me all that excited. If I'm OHEY, I'm very excited if I'm Elevate at the fact that Baron Airy is already level 20, 1 item away from his completed build. We saw an interaction from Keegs and Amul that we saw at the end of Game 1, where Amul just wasn't allowed to play because Keegs, now with more of a full power build on his side, was able to delete that enemy mid laner. Just so tough to lock down this Morgan. All the conversation around, the transformations, what she's able to do. But you bring a stealth, a follow-up, stun, and then the full spell rotation. You're going to delete any of these squishies. Polynomicon, Doug Hubbard earlier, little extra damage on a basic attack. Not like late game Morgan is all that soft either.
No. She, again, it's dangerous. Honestly, if you're Kirmi, if you ever aggress onto Keegs without your ult, you're probably not going to walk away from that engagement alive. If you do, you're not walking away happy, because I don't think Keegs is going to be the one who's in trouble there. And that's the biggest downside, I think, for this Kali is, who do you go on? I mean, Keegs, worst case scenario, is just going to transform into Wukong and, Somersault Cloud his way out of there.
Look what Heed and Spreen are doing, buying space so the rest of Elevate can start up this FG. It's going to be the Mez from Oceans in there. Dishonored is here as well. What do Elevate choose to do? Well, they're still swinging some damage onto the Fire Giant. Oceans is here. Really, it's OHEY that are left in the FG pit. Up to the sky goes Baron Airy. Down with a snipe. Sets up a kill for Spreen. The long-range shot from the Rom. That connects over onto Kirmi. 2 down now. Oceans has to dash away. Has the passive. But that's a dead Kumba. All that's left to decide is who gets the kill, and the dice come up Spreen's way this time. Maybe it's an FG bait there, Goremizer. But OHEY still fall by the wayside, and it looks like Elevate might get the Fire Giant nonetheless. If Dishonored sticks around, which he won't, he might be the next sacrifice.
I'm simultaneously surprised and unsurprised to see Keegs go back into the Wukong there for his transformation. Mainly because of what I was talking about during picks and bans. There was an I'm a Monster available going into that, and you're one misstep away from OHEY potentially just swinging that Fire Giant in their favor. They could still have lost the fight just thereafter, they might have been able to strip the buff away from you. I think it's a good call from Elevate to drop it when they do. Maybe a little more heads up from OHEY to be looking at the health bar of it. Is it worth trying to finish it out? Or maybe Keegs, if he delays his transformation, ever so slightly, becomes Scylla, goes for an I'm a Monster, and can then burst it down and give him that boost for the fight. Either way, they still walk away victorious and with a Fire Giant, so I don't know if there's any real second guessing for Elevate here. Everything's been coming up perfectly.
Oh, here we are, 23 and a half minutes into the game, already thinking about Phoenix defenses, and it's really seemed that way from minute 1 after Elevate. Maybe minute 5 is when we saw the first few opening kills. This is really map for the taking. Elevate can kind of do whatever they want, except maybe full-blown dive a Phoenix, which lends to the next point in how comfortable maybe OHEY are feeling on the defensive side of things.
Again, now that chin size is finished for Kirmi, I think the defense might honestly be the setup you need for yourself to turn things around, right? Flip it all over on its head. We had been talking about hitting level 20 for Elevate being a big deal. Well, they've done that. Now it's 2 levels in the jungle instead of 3 like it was. 1 level in solo and mid instead of the 2 to 3 that it was earlier. So they're catching up on the side of OHEY. It's going to cost them 2 tier 2 towers, probably a Phoenix, but this is where they can start looking to fight back.
Emule hurts. I mean, he's only a level behind, but still has a kill. I mean, he's 1 and 4. I mean, we have reached that point, Gore. It's a great point you make. The gold lead is all lopsided. Really, it's a 1-item differential kind of across the board, but the fight back potential certainly there. Heed into the backline. He goes swinging away on Amule. Watch out. Kirmi's found his first kill of the game, but Baronary will immediately put him right back down, dishonored, soaking up some good damage, but Baronary not feeling any sort of pressure whatsoever. Keegs gets the kill, but Amule immediately crushes him back down to earth. She is still on the front line, but he'll leap out. It's a couple of kills for both teams, but the Phoenix is the difference maker.
Yeah, it's realistically the 2-for-2 trade, but using your Fire Giant, you get the Phoenix, you keep Baronary alive, along with Shia. I actually wouldn't mind seeing them maybe go get aggressive, not just on this Primal Fury, but try to sneak that tier 2 over there and right as well. Just get rid of all the towers, make it a little bit easier of an avenue for you to know where you're going to go next, especially since you have a minute and a half on this Fire Giant. It's that awkward time of, do we have enough people to get aggressive, and if so, where do we get aggressive? That's the only target I think that's feasible right now that is going to be safe to call, safe to disengage from, but something you can still get.
Now, he'd found his way pretty freely into the backline there, and, maybe interesting with, some anti-heal priority on OHEY, or lack thereof. Gore, normally that's kind of the first thing we start to see up against a Vamana, trying to mitigate some of that healing in Colossal Fury, and I'm not sure how much of it OHEY have to deal with this Vamana. 2-0-10 for the solo laner.
I mean, he's not hurting in terms of healing, and maybe you can look at Kirmi as being able to find the attack speed, looking to just burn him down if that's their target more often than not, but doesn't seem to be bothering Heed any, and honestly, when Heed's been comfortable, things have gone worse for OHEY. In Game 1 we saw that, now we're seeing it again here, and, I mean, maybe you have to look at Dishonored, finally going for the Spectral Armor, but usually it is that solo laner lately that we see pick up that anti-heal to try and help shut down, especially someone like Vamana, and right now, no Cursed Ankh, one Divine Ruin, which I think is going to be solid, but, I mean, not a lot that's going to be able to completely shut it down. Meanwhile, Heed is perfectly happy being able to stop this Kali from getting her heal off.
Yeah, that's a good hover there by Doug. So not only is he going to find his way into the back, there is so much damage. My God. You don't need anti-heal if you're just going to get rid of his health bar anyway. So maybe an opening here for OHEY. Down goes Heat. 50 seconds left on the solo laner. Baronary up into the ultimate, but not connecting with really much of his shots. Down low he goes. A shell to keep himself alive, but it's a double kill from Keegs onto the front line. The mid laner from Elevate has turned this fight around. Up to the sky. Still a Wukong for Keegs into the back line, but he's going to disengage from this one. And somehow they turn that one around. You lose Heed, and you're thinking this is fight over, but it's easy to forget. It's a 16-5 game, a 15k gold lead.
And honestly, you lose Heed. Heed died with his ult up. I think that was more Heed getting blown up a little bit faster than he thought to, which admittedly it's going to happen when you've got 2 chin size on the other side, a Scylla, everybody looking to all in this Vamana, finally shutting him down and getting that first kill onto him. But you have to, look at, well, the Soul Reaver, the damage output that's going to be coming out from OHEY. It's not anything you can just ignore now, and that's their win condition. That was something we highlighted very early on in this game, something we talked about, 10, 15 minutes ago, and it still is applicable. The longer this goes, the better it is for OHEY. The better it is because, hey, experience doesn't matter anymore. Hey, gold, after a while, stops mattering as much, so there's still an avenue for them to come in. Granted, it does mean you have to live through engagements like this. You lose Fire Giant another time. You have to keep these Phoenixes alive. You have to have a good defense, but they've showcased that they can do it at least once. I believe they can find another one, and honestly, that's when it starts getting shaky for Elevate. 2 or 3 more fights for OHEY, and they win this game. They have to start it now.
I got to admit, surprising seeing 2k damage for Frasian, despite a 5-1 and 3 Baronary. On the other side, might see how the damage charts start to flip after a Phoenix siege here. Left side Phoenix just now respawning. Full transition over to the mid lane for OHEY, except for Dishonored, who's still here in range. Into the back line goes Heed. Keegs finds the killing spree over in the mid lane. Baronary into the ultimate, but down he goes. Right side Phoenix, mid lane Phoenix, both taken down. No Kirmi for the next minute or so, but full strength on Elevate. They're going to rotate back to the left lane and then maybe push in after.
Yeah, this is usually the death sentence. The last nail in the coffin typically is the last Phoenix that comes down. And usually, that's the key word. Without Kirmi for another 30 seconds, Amuel has to go big. Phrasen has to go huge in order to stop this one because it's still full health and a good-looking fight for Elevate.
Well, at some point, Elevate might just be able to walk in and attack the Titans. Still enough reinforcements here for OHEY. Not completely guaranteed. So you do have to be careful if you're Elevate not to bite off too much. Mid lane minions now are pouring in. Fire minions just now reaching the middle of the map. So you're going to have to wait a few more seconds there. Heed locked in, pops the thorn, stays alive. Look at the crits over onto Dishonored though. They're going to keep that Cullen down. Epic uppercut onto Keegs. But somehow Keegs stays alive. It's the Titan. Down to half HP. Dishonored is pouring through the damage screen. Swinging away in the backline. Elevate have gotten it done. They grab win number 1 here in the SCC. In 30 minutes.
Look, my mind is doing this equation at the very end there, right? I'm looking at the damage being done to the Titan. I'm watching Kirmi as he respawns, and I'm just like, there's a lot of low health bars. Like, if I'm talking about a turnaround Kali potential, that's the moment for Kirmi to just step out of the base and wipe Elevate and turn this fight into maybe something a little less favorable for Elevate. Still, with 3 Phoenixes down, it would have been a hard fight for OHEY. But luckily for Elevate, they don't even have to worry about it. And realistically, Dave, I don't like throwing anyone under the bus when it comes down to it. Ocean's 4,500 damage. He was a support, couldn't do too much. But Kirmi, only 1,000 more than that, 5,500, pretty far behind everyone else. It just did not hit this Kali. And unfortunately, I think that's really where that falls apart.
There's only 1-0 remaining in the win column here in the North American SEC, and that is OHEY. Got to be frustrating being that close, at least Game 3. As far as getting to a Game 3 being close, Game 3 itself wasn't all that particularly close. Elevate are able to get the 2-1 locked and goated hype unit. They'll be playing today after the SPL, so make sure to stay tuned after our 2 SPL sets today to watch those. And then locked and goated back in action, or OHEY, and locked and goated both back in action to round out the week here. Gormizer, some big SPL sets on the horizon, though. With Obey and Renegades to start things off. It's not Championship Sunday yet, but it might be for the Renegades.
Yeah, it kind of has that same feel to it as it would in something like that, because Renegades, win, go to playoffs, lose, well, sit around at home, maybe sad next week that you're not playing around. And the same thing, Sanguine Trail still trying to fight for those top 2 spots, just because it does give you some guaranteed points if you manage to make it into spot 1 and 2. You're guaranteed, at worst case, 4th place, 3rd place, no matter what. You're going to be able to get some good points for yourself going into the year, which is going to matter as we go into the second phase and start looking towards Worlds and everything like that at the end of the year.
Yeah, lots of different kind of dynamics that can fill up there for Sanguine. 0-2 puts him in 3rd, 1-2 either way. The desk will break it down for you guys. 5 minutes away, ladies and gentlemen. The SPL will kick off its final day in Phase 1 prior to the Phase 1 playoffs. Stick around, SPL coming up right after this.